Welcome to Power Yourself, where I talk about the most important topic in the world, you. Today I want you to consider, are you living up to be your best self? What does that actually look like? Are your actions actually lining up with that version of yourself that you want to be? I think sometimes we get so caught up in how other people are acting that we actually stop looking at ourselves. We stop looking at, are we showing up and interacting and being that best version of ourselves? The way that we want people to see us, the way that we actually truly want to show up and interact in our day-to-day life. Are we holding ourselves to that specific standard? It's so easy to pick other people apart and notice when they're maybe not living up to a perfect version of themselves, but are you holding yourself to that same standard? Are you asking yourself questions of who you actually want to be in situations, in conversations, in relationships? How do you want to be showing up? Do you want to be the person who actively listens or is genuinely caring for other individuals? Do you want to be the person who's maybe supportive of other people? Do you want to be the encourager? It can be so many things, but have you actually sat down and thought about how you want to be presenting yourself on that day-to-day basis? So a great rule of thumb would be, in later years, when you're like 80 or 90 years old, how do you want people to be talking about you? Let's say it's a big birthday and someone's giving a big speech. How do you want them to actually describe you? And then once you get that kind of loose idea of how you want to be seen, then you need to start asking yourselves, is my behaviors and qualities that I possess in the day-to-day currently, are they matching up with the version that I want to be? And maybe they're not. That's okay. We always need to have something to strive towards. But it's about really taking the time to self-reflect and find out what that ideal version of yourself is. Then the next part actually becomes is, how are your behaviors lining up to possess those qualities? So are you actually putting the energy and effort in to show up in that way that you really want to be seen? I always think it's really easy to say, yeah, I want to be kind, or I want to be compassionate or supportive. And then you need to ask yourself the questions, well, am I actually doing that? It's nice to think those things are great and that you want to be seen as them, but are you physically putting that energy in to being that person in your relationships and to yourself? Are you being compassionate to yourself in times of overwhelm or depression or anxiety? Are you being kind to yourself in those situations? And are you being kind to others? So when you're annoyed or maybe frustrated, are you still showing up and consciously trying to be that best version of yourself? Really easy to live this in the moments that we feel everything are great. A little bit harder when you're trying to show up and be this maybe on not so great of a day. So that's really trying to be self-aware and catch yourself in those situations. Kind of use that self-talk in your head to help keep you along that guided path, keep you within the direction that you actually want to go, and holding yourself to that standard, consistently holding yourself to that standard. Defining that best version of yourself, I feel sometimes it links a lot to your past. So past experiences, past people who have really stood out for you. So for me, looking back, it's always people with patience. You know, that was a trait I early on gravitated towards. Also, genuinely kind people, like genuinely that good heart, showing up and being compassionate and kind to other people. And I think the other thing for me was really being in the moment, a genuine in the moment person, not trying to be something they weren't, just very comfortable about being who they are and not trying to be something else. So those were things really early on for me that I picked up, and I really tried to present those qualities, okay? And I continuously tried to present those qualities. So it's about looking at what stands out for you. What do you really admire and respect of other people? And then are you really showing up and consciously putting that effort in to being that version of yourself? I think it's really easy to say, yeah, patience, that's really good. I want to be seen that way. But then it's about, well, how am I showing up? So when I'm frustrated or in the midst of traffic or when things are not going my way, am I still patient? Am I still working towards that goal? And it's usually checking yourself. So a huge piece is self-awareness. If I'm not showing up in that way, well, what do I got to do to get there? Okay, so for me, for patience, a big thing is making sure I'm grounded. So really making sure that I'm showing up and doing my self-care, okay, doing my work so that I can actually show up in interactions and have that patience with other people and myself. When I'm not, when I'm really busy or when I'm caught off guard or when I'm having a not so great day, I know I need to be more self-aware in these situations because sometimes I might quickly jump to get annoyed in traffic, or I might quickly jump to get mad at myself for not getting something. So it's about holding ourselves consistently to that standard that we really admire. And I feel when we do that, when we consciously put that energy and effort in, we start to get kinder with other people when they're not showing that glorious image of themselves, or when they're maybe struggling sometimes. It's easier for us to really empathize and know, hey, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to put that best foot forward. And then really showing kindness to each other when we're all trying. We're all human. Every single one of us are going to make big mistakes. And you know what? We're going to make many more too. But it's about how do we hold ourselves in those moments? Do we get really hard on ourselves? Do we get really mad at other people or disappointed? Or do we check ourselves and say, you know what? We're all just doing the best we can in that moment. And then it becomes, hopefully, we learn something, we take away something from it, and that allows us to really show up and be more aware and hopefully gain that perspective or knowledge for the next time around. So once you have those big qualities that you're working towards, then it's just like the goal setting. It's about really digging down and finding out, okay, well, what do those qualities look like? How do I show up? And in my relationships and interaction, what do those qualities bring to the table? So really understanding the behaviors and specific ways to interact that would help you work towards that larger goal of having that quality or attaining that behavior. Okay, so really getting specific with yourself and asking, what does that look like? So in my relationship, if I'm showing patience, how does that show up in an interaction with another person? Maybe is that allowing them to finish? Is that not interrupting people when they've told you that story before? Just giving people the space to really show up and have that time. Having the patience to allow people to really be seen and to just allow things to fall as they do, as opposed to the way you think they should. So really, really getting deep and really asking yourself the questions, how do these behaviors actually show up? So I look back on past people who you feel have really held that quality and look at their interactions. What allowed you to feel that way? What allowed you to think that they were kind or that they were patient or whatever it is? And then really looking at yourself and seeing, hey, am I doing this when I show up in conversation, when I show up in my relationships? So really asking yourself the question, am I basically working towards that goal? Now, the times that you're not able, you're catching yourself and you walk away and you're like, maybe, oh, wow, I didn't show up the way I really wanted to that time. Sometimes it's about owning that, maybe admitting to the person, wow, I really reflected and I'm sorry I didn't show up and really give you that respect or that time or whatever it was. So really being transparent with each other that we're trying to be that best version of ourselves. And that means calling it when we're not living up to that standard. Being honest with each other, being transparent, say, you know what, I'm working on that. I'm sorry I wasn't the best friend in that moment, or I wasn't the best listener in that moment. I really tried to give my own advice there. So calling yourself on those times that you're really not showing up the way you really want to and being transparent with each other, that's going to allow everybody to realize that that's really important to you. And it's also going to give each other that piece of vulnerability, knowing that, you know what, we're not all perfect all the time. Every single person struggles in different ways. So the more we can show up and be empathetic with ourselves and with each other and just be transparent and say, you know what, I wasn't great then. Sorry about that. I think it allows us all to be a little bit gentler with ourselves because we realize everybody struggles at sometimes. So I think the more we can admit that, the more we really want to show up and be that best version of ourselves because we realize it takes work. It's not something that comes really easy and it happens all the time. If you want to be a certain way, it takes energy and you need to be able to focus yourself towards it and make sure and hold yourself accountable that you're actually showing up in those ways or in those interactions in the way that you really hold dear. Then after admitting and being transparent and vulnerable with each other, then it's about the self-reflection. So sitting back and really thinking about why wasn't I able to be that quality in that situation? So looking back for me, it would be, why didn't I have patience? What was happening for me? And really allowing the time and space to reflect. What got in my way? What was my struggle? What did I allow myself to really get caught up on? And then looking at, how could I have done that differently? So spending that time self-reflecting to see, hey, if I'm really working towards a certain quality here, let's say patience, then what could I have done to really show that quality in that situation? Looking at what were the behaviors that I could have did. And then what could I have done to allow myself to really show up in that particular way? So like I said, we all make mistakes. Everybody stumbles. Nobody's the best self all the time. It's about striving to be our best selves all the time. So that means just holding ourselves accountable and really working towards that best version. So in those mistakes or in those moments that we stumble, by self-reflecting and holding ourselves to that quality and asking ourselves what got in our way, it allows us to bring that awareness the next time maybe we stumble. And maybe we catch ourselves a little bit quicker, or maybe we know. So for me, if I'm really busy or really scattered, I know it's hard for me to display or show up and be patient. So times that I know I'm going to be really, really busy or scattered, I know I have to do a lot of prep work. So I know I have to make sure I'm grounded. So my daily rituals are a necessity. They're a necessity always, but those times that I'm going into something really busy or I know I'm going to not have a lot of time for myself, then I really got to carve out my practices and make sure I'm showing up for myself to prepare so that in my interactions, I can hold myself to that standard. So maybe it means carving out time in the middle of that busyness for me. Really looking at, what could I do? What could I do that would allow myself to get a little bit more grounded so that I'm more patient with people and myself? Maybe that means taking a break, going for a walk, going for coffee, going just to sit down for a second. Maybe it means a quick 5 or 10 minute meditation or yoga, or maybe it means working out. Who knows what it is? Whatever it is for you, find out what that is. How can you show up and be those qualities that you really want to be seen as? And how do you set yourself up for success here? So really looking at what needs to happen for you to be able to show up and live these qualities, so that even on those crazy times, you know a recipe that you can use to help you show up and be your best self. And this is not something you have to do alone or you have to know intuitively. This is something that you can maybe guess at. Maybe it's, hey, if I did this, would that help me show up in this particular situation that way? So maybe it's about trying stuff out and then readjusting. Hey, that didn't quite work. What else should I do? What else do I need to show up and do for myself so that I can really hold myself to that standard? And another thing is ask people. So if you see people that you know or that you interact with holding those qualities that you really admire, ask them, hey, what allows you to be this way on such a continuous basis? Or what do you do to help you really keep that in focus? Ask, talk, have conversations, get to know people. You might walk away with another idea that you've never thought of. And even if not, you're promoting those behaviors by acknowledging them in other people and having a conversation about it. You're bringing attention to the positive. You're bringing attention to a quality that you really respect. And that's going to allow somebody else to maybe walk away and feel a little bit better. Or who knows, maybe they're struggling. So maybe by you noticing it in them, maybe they show up and it's a little easier for them the next time. Who knows? But by having conversations and really promoting the traits and qualities that you really admire, I think it's good energy, you know? And what's the worst? You're walking away and you realize you had a genuine, honest, positive, good conversation. At the end of the day, that's what builds relationships and defines the environment that we live in. If we acknowledge those good things and promote them, then we start to really see more of them. You know, we start to support each other, trying to work towards being our best self and really showing up and living our lives that way and supporting each other to live their lives that way. You know, so much of society, we can get caught up in what's wrong or what's not working or how crappy somebody showed up in that situation. But are we acknowledging the good times too? Are we really sharing space and creating space for those positive behaviors to encourage them as opposed to shaming the bad ones? What about creating more space for the good ones, creating more acknowledgement, more promotion to see people and encourage people to really show up and be their best versions of themselves? And that means you being your best version of yourself and striving really to be that best version of yourself. Just imagine for a second, what about if that was the focus? You know, that was what we put our energy towards, is the positive and really living out those good, genuine qualities that we want to see more of, as opposed to having these conversations about how somebody stumbled or somebody wasn't their best selves or how we didn't show up. You know, there's a period of self-reflection, but then there's dwelling. And I find when we dwell in that negative space, we create more of it. So maybe an idea, start focusing on the good, start focusing on those qualities that you really want to see. And I promise you, you'll start to notice them more. And if you start to have conversations with those people, then you actually start to see it more. You start to encourage it more. And you start to actually look for it more, as opposed to looking for maybe the bad reactions or the bad versions of people. Put a little bit more focus to the positive. Where are people showing up and really putting the energy into being their best selves? And acknowledging when you do that too. Maybe you go through a hard situation and you know what? You held yourself to that standard and you did it. Or maybe you did better than last time. So celebrate those successes. Acknowledge them. Don't beat yourself up all the time or on that consistent basis. Put energy to the positive too. I promise you, it will enrich your life and the people around you. You're just genuinely going to be a more positive person if you're just striving to be better in each interaction and acknowledging people for when they show up and they spread that positivity or those genuine interactions. You're encouraging the good. You're putting energy to the good. The thing that it always boils down to is you're in control. Always. Okay? It's a conscious choice on a day-to-day basis if you want to show up and be that best version of yourselves, or if you allow that more reactionary state to sit in and, everybody was mean to me, or, that was a really bad day, and then you just react it. As opposed to saying, you know what? Maybe things are not going the way I planned right now, but I still have that choice that I get to make every single day, every single moment of every day. You get to choose how you want to act. You get to choose, do I want to hold myself to this standard and be my best self? Or am I okay just reacting right now, or giving into the negativity, or giving into the frustration or overwhelmed, or whatever it is? That's a choice. This is why I do these podcasts, is to promote that everybody gets to make these choices every day. And you always, always have the potential within yourself to show up and be that best version of you. These shows or these podcasts are to promote different tools that we can do, different things that's possibly worked for me or other people that I've had on the show. But it's about really being able to spend that time, self-reflect, and hold yourself to that standard of being your best self, being the best version of you that you possibly can be, and consciously choosing to allow your actions and behaviors and your thoughts to line up with that best self. I think sometimes that can be a scary concept, that we have all the power. So that means on the bad days, we chose to have that bad day. But for me, I think it's giving the power back, or it's taking the power back to realize that we do have that choice. Even in the midst of chaos, you can choose to be your best self. It takes that conscious choice and then line your actions up with that version of you. Make the effort, put the energy in to show up and be that best version of yourself, and encourage others to be that best version of them. So to wrap it up today, we're going to look at tips to being your best self. What are some things you can actually do to support yourself and work towards that best version? So the first thing I wrote down was write out and decide what you want to be and who you want to be. How do you want to be in your interactions? Take time, acknowledge that. Like I said, look at past relationships, past experiences, and really write out the qualities that you want to bring to the table. That's going to allow you to bring awareness to all of your actions and your behaviors. It's going to start to allow you to hold yourself and be more accountable in your interactions. The next one I wrote down is self-reflect. That's a big piece. A lot of time we jump to the next thing, but do we allow this space to really self-reflect? Take time and ask yourself questions like, am I showing up this way? Or is this working towards the way I want to be seen? Or is this really working in honor of my best version of myself? Third one I wrote down, self-care. Self-care. It's huge. I feel so much we get caught up with helping everybody else. And it's beautiful to support other people. And are you supporting yourself in that same way? Are you taking time for yourself? You know, I say it, I've said it probably a billion times so far in these podcasts, and I'll say it a billion more. Airline people, they nail it. Philosophers beyond their time. Put on your own oxygen mask before you can assist with anybody else. Take time for yourself. Find out what makes you happy and do it. That's going to allow you to put energy and positivity in yourself. And that's going to allow you to show up in your interactions in that more positive, genuine way. Okay, so self-care, huge one. Fill yourself up. Fill your tanks up so that you can really come to your interactions and your relationships full. Fourth one I wrote down is judgment. Here's a big one, guys. Let it go. Let go of judging other people, okay? Everybody, like I said, we're just trying to be the best that we can. And sometimes we're being the best that we can in that moment with the tools that we have and the awareness that we have. So stop judging other people. Put the focus in yourself. You know, really hold yourself to your best self. And then you can show up and support other people. But hold yourself to that standard. And then you're going to be able to empathize and understand when other people stumble too. Okay? Let go of the judgment. And that goes into the next one. Let go of what you cannot control. You can't control much in life. We can always control ourselves though. So what we think about, you know, what actions we do, behaviors we do, focus your energy there. Let go of other people. Let go of what you cannot control. You cannot control situations. You cannot control events, but you can control yourself. So put your actions and your energy in that, okay? Look at how can I show up and how can I control myself? And that's actually going to impact the situation or event. And then you're going to realize you don't need to control anything else. If you can show up and control yourself, that's a beautiful thing. And that's going to support other people to do that. So really, it's the last one. Just really controlling, putting your energy into you. That's how you're going to show up and make a difference. Look at your thoughts, actions, attitudes, stuff like that. Put your energy there, and that's going to allow you to show up, be more positive, be more present, and really support yourself to be your best self and other people. So that's it for today. Okay, so really looking at, do you know what your best self is? Do you know who that is? What qualities do you want to attain? And are you lining up your actions, behaviors, so that you are really displaying that best self? Okay, are you really putting your energy in to that best version of yourself? So guys, as always, it's an absolute delight having these conversations or talking about these ideas. My hope is always that we spread this concept, we spread the energy, give this space for supporting each other and showing up in the best possible way that we can. Filling ourselves up, allowing ourselves to really show up and be genuine, compassionate, kind, and present with each other, okay? Giving the space for that positivity. I hope each and every one of you have an absolute amazing day. And here's the thing, make it an amazing day. Go out, acknowledge something positive today that maybe you didn't acknowledge and give space to before. Talk about it, have a conversation, and notice how that makes you feel and how that kind of spreads that energy, that positivity, and you'll start to feel it more and more. Never forget, guys, it's a choice. It's a choice to show up in your actions and really put the time and energy into you. If there's a concept you want to talk about, shoot me a message. We have Facebook, okay? We have the site on Facebook, and you can always reach out through YouTube as well. Message, get in touch, leave a review on iTunes. Maybe bring up something that you want to see. Let's continue these conversations. Keep spreading these ideas to really help better our environment and really spread that positivity throughout our whole culture. Have yourself, like I said, a fantastic day. And always remember, it is only up to you to power yourself.